school by the name, didn't we, Silver?
Huh?
Yeah, we had people down at school by that.
Yeah.
My name is Diane.
Hmm?
My name is Diane.
Diane's a nice name.
Thank you.
My name is Donald.
Donald?
Mm-hmm.
They all got good names.
Okay.
I'm Bridget.
Bridget. You little sweet Irish girl?
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Bridget, that's an old Irish name.
And the little fella?
I'm Don Palace.
Where do I am?
Palace.
Palace?
P-A-L-C.
You never fella?
Yep.
I've seen you around someplace.
Yeah, Jeff Flanagan.
Oh, yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dennis is going to do our introduction. Go ahead.
This is the Alternative Center for Education, interviewing former Mayor John Preverty.
Okay. And Dennis, would you like to start? First question?
When were you mayor of Danbury?
1931, I believe it was. Should be in here. Pretty sure it was 1931. See in here. 1951. Mayor. 16 years. We elected mayor. 3. First GOP mayor. Re-elected 35 years. Presently, State Central Committee since 1962. Correctional Director of Bridgeport and Danbury Jail, sorry to say. High Sheriff of Fairfield County since 1962. For the past 4 years, President of the Connecticut Sheriff's Association. Member for 14 years, Danbury Board of Education. More than that. Chairman of Transportation and School Building Committees, and various fundraising drives for worthy causes. Affiliations in Elks Club, Knights of Columbus, Volunteer Fireman, Independent Hold number 4, former Danbury Director, former Richard Country Club and Danbury Club Director, and charter member of the Danbury Bank and Trust Company. Sports active golfer, enthusiastic sports fan. I was very enthusiastic golfer, but I was knocked out of an airplane, and I only have one. I can't raise this shoulder anymore. Yeah, I play with one hand, so I just hold my left hand, and play and kind of practice that because I like exercise.
Yeah.
And I have at my plate, believe it or not, I have 26 acres of hell up there, sometimes part of the expression. You always have something to do.
Yeah.
Always, and I'm not sorry about it. I'm enjoying it.
Well,
At times I get a little, angry, but just for a short time. I see a big fella like him, I don't say nothing.
okay. Well, let's work our way around, all right? Let's see.
Right.
Diane, you want to go first? Nice and loud.
How did you get started in
I forgot to
politics?
put one thing down here, President of the Lead Hat Company.
Oh, we got to talk to you about that.
You want to make me think of it?
The hat.
Sure.
Right.
I was President of the Hat Company.
Okay. All right. We'll jot that down because we do want to talk about that. Okay, Diane, want to ask your question again?
How did you get started in politics?
How did it started?
In politics.
It's quite a long story. I wasn't enlisted in any party, none whatsoever. And the time came when they asked me to run, and I told them no, I wasn't interested. I had enough business, enough things to do at home, and my printing plant. I had a printing plant, for many years. That same plant did last year $30 million worth of business. My nephew doing a wonderful job. And that's where I started off. And I worked there, I think it was $12 a week. And it was 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. Away, old Danbury. I think it's on, where the clock is. We were in there. And he told a story about me. Steve Collins does. I used to go up the 3rd floor when it was much on the 2nd floor where I was captain to stay. And I used to ride a bicycle down the stairs. All the stairs. He told everybody how I rode the bicycle 3 stories went right through the door into in the front that time. They had a horse in front there, where they come and drank the water. And I ran over the top of that.
Sounds like something Dennis would do.
Right over the top.
Yeah.
I was a heller sometimes.
And then as far as getting into politics goes?
Well, they asked me to run because I was an Italian. Well, I'm a mongrel Italian. That's what my father said. I was a mongrel. And they asked me up North Street School and fill out, it was a mongrel. I put mongrel on it.
Did being an Italian help?
Miss Funnel was a teacher, and I'll remember to this day. She laughed and laughed and laughed. Then it was Miss Ryan who was there a long time up there. And I used to try to ring the bell, but I was too small. But my brother Cecil, who is still alive, thank God, he's about 92 now, traveled all over the world, all over the world. And he knew that place, and I wanted the bell. So they promised me the bell when they took it down. And but I wanted to ring it. When I got it, my brother gave me got on the rope and it went up. They had a hell of a time getting me down. I had to hold on to the rope to get down. It wasn't easy, but they got me down. But I wasn't anxious to rope that rope anymore after that.
That sounds like something Donald would do.
Well, I tell you about that. They came to me because I was a battalion expert. And I told them, I said, you've got a lot of battalions. You've got a top rope. We called around this place on White Street. We just had the name on the tip of my tongue. I know who's in there now. He had sports goods and all that sort of Volcano. That was his name. And he turned it down. Everybody turned it down. So then they pleaded with me for a while because I was a newspaper man and so forth and so on. So I listened to them, and I'm not sorry. I did what they asked me to do, and we had no trouble. We got along fine. We had a little trouble. We took out here and there. We sat down man to man at that time. Sometimes a woman or two. And go the whole thing like we're doing right now.
Did being Italian really help in terms of running for mayor?
Does that think it helped? I don't know. I don't think so.
Did people vote along ethnic lines at that time? You know, like Italians for
Well, you
Italians?
see, I was really not in either party. See, and my father was the one who told me, we don't get in either party, Democrat or Republican. You're in business and you do your business and run the printing plant. Let somebody else run the city of Danbury. And so, but they finally, I weakened and said I would run, which I did for a while, so a number of times, but they kept me in there. But at that time, we had Joe Sauer upstairs. There was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Wonderful man. We had some very nice milk boys. We've had some wonderful people on city helping the city of Danbury, and they did a good job. They never wanted a nickel at that time or anything else. Just do it, you know. Like we wanted to pay Canterbury or some school. We used to go in and see the principal. We had a pretty good ball team for young kids, young fellas.
So you ran, and how did you get pick the Republican Party then, or did they pick you?
They picked me. They picked me. I tried to keep out of it, but I couldn't.
Right.
I said yes. I finally said yes, and I stayed in for, I think it was 2 terms or something.
Bridget?
Good.
You were a member of the Board of Education for 14 years. Why was education so important to you?
Well, they asked me to get on the committee. My sister Margaret, you probably know, we went to school there. They had to make me a preamble poverty. If you didn't do your work good, you wrote a preamble so many times. And she's still alive. It's my sister Margaret. Did you ever hear of her in school? Margaret Poverty?
No.
No. Well, she's still around, still active.
What were some of the things that you know, when you were on the Board of Education for 14 years, what were some of the major things that you did on the Board of Ed?
Well, we chased them off the Board of Education, and I was very strict on people, women and their husbands coming down squawking. And it was rough, well, with me. And I told them why. So they were mad. And I didn't weaken on the thing. And I told them why. And the reason was, you brought them in there. And everybody, well, it was over religion, which I'm a B on that.
You know, religion was an issue for the Board of Education?
It never was with me.
Yeah.
There what your religion was, what your color was, a damn thing. I was very strict and still am on it. That's my policy. And I would say something, they put me on the Board of Education. I would talk to them and say, come on. We got good men on there. And then we tell the girls and the men why we didn't do it. And they were very fair about it. Very good. And Joe Sauer, you couldn't get mad at Joe Sauer. He had nice, no voice. You know, those fellows are very nice people. And they were thinking of Danbury in their heart, too.
What was the religion issue? I mean, what were they concerned about, do you remember?
Well, it was the Irish and the Italians, so to speak, at the time. There was a lot of Irish down the Fourth Ward, and they were all Democrats. And if you were a Republican, you were committing sin.
Oh.
That was a terrible thing. They didn't chase me. As long as they got me in there, I said, all right, you asked me and begged me in there, so to speak. So I'm not going to change at all, which I never did. And as a matter of fact, they got mine. Especially the Fourth Ward, you probably know the Fourth Ward. Every time you had to be Irish and live in the Fourth Ward.
Yeah, I lived in the Fifth Ward.
Huh?
I was over in the Fifth Ward.
Fifth?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Southern Boulevard, Lincoln Avenue.
Oh, you wonder it's a place a little bit, huh?
Right. Tom?
What were some of the major accomplishments in education?
In education, we got some good people up there. You know, we had Sweet and those fellows that had the office then at the on West Street, you know, next to where the Danbury Club is now. You know what I mean?
White Street.
Well, now they're on White Street.
Right.
And, we had people that they had paid attention to them. Because money was a big thing in those days. You don't understand money. But we had some of these people that call them carpetbaggers. And two of them are very brilliant fellows. If they paid attention to them, you wouldn't have what you got on Main Street now. And now I'm going to tell you something. I think that will close me off a little bit. I was called the Nightmare of Danbury. You ever hear that? The Nightmare of Danbury. And because in the business, if I went in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, which I did, they come knocking on the windows and doing that, and couldn't get anywhere. So we used to work nights, and we had a fellow there that took care of all, for the other, we're all lawyers, you know, coming in and having their papers ready for them, relations and so forth. And get away from what I was going to say to you.
Well, why you were called the Nightmare of Danbury?
Well, I call myself that.
Uh-huh.
And Bobby there, a couple of kids the other day, and we, hello there, you still at Wilson? Yeah, the foot doctor now? He still remembers that. He called him Nightmare of Danbury. And that stayed with me, but that's more or less a joke, really. But we, as it get back, we had some very nice people, you know, very nice. And I was very strict. If they were a Republican and no good, I wouldn't put them on. If they were a Democrat and they were good, they went on. That was my principle, and it would still be today if I was there. I begged some of the girls and men not to come and try to scare us, because that would be the wrong policy. I told them what to do. It was over religion. You know, some of the kids got off on that bus because no one's going to get on. And I was against that all the way. It would still be. They finally did away with that. You know?
Why wouldn't they let them on the bus?
Well, it was a bus for the churches, you know.
Oh.
See, they gave it to them like St. Joe's was one. cut them down, you know what I mean, like that.
To let the kids from St. Joe's ride the city buses? Or?
No, no. Well, wait a minute, yes, they did. Yes, they did. There was a call where Carl lived now and lived then. His kids couldn't get on the bus. See? And the Catholics could. When I heard that, I went to work. I wasn't liked for a while, but they worked out all right. After the Catholics can vote on the work on there, any decent person is entitled to do it, and they're going to work it. It makes sense that anybody would be a dumb cluck not to do it. Here's the running out here, and the kids are waiting, and they got to wait in the cold, sometimes in the snow, sometimes in the heat. We stopped that immediately, and it went over good. Very sure.
Doc, you were a sheriff for a while. That sounds like something out of the Wild West. What does a sheriff do?
And this sheriff in this neck of the woods don't amount to too much. The sheriff, the real sheriffs come from down the end, down yonder. They elect the mayors, they elect everybody. They're very, very strong. We're more or less electing bills. Things of that kind. That's the biggest part of it. Because we were small fry, so to speak, but now it's getting tougher and tougher. See? Some of these sheriffs need a lesson. They want to scare somebody with it. I never allowed it. If I heard about it, they took a vacation without pay. And that's all done away with. We got a pretty good man there. I know. Took my place after I retired. So that's sheriff's. It's sometimes tough.
Could you tell us about reevaluation and how people react to it?
Well, they didn't like it at all. After they got it, they can't do it. It wasn't fair. You knew politicians like Tom Keating, and he was shut off his back. They never hurt anybody. A lot of people didn't like, well, he was a Democrat, big wheel, say. Henry Geeler was a Republican. I remember him. Business was short business. And he was the big wheel of the Republicans. If you need anything done, you like getting on a school board. When I became Keating wasn't a bad fellow, he was a Democrat. And he called, at that time, McLaughlin, hats were going to pieces and are out of his work. And we used to hire those when we hired janitors, understand, of my policy in the beginning. When we hired janitors, we'd give it to the ones that had kids and needed the job. True. And he would do it. I would say, it was my turn this time. Next time was his turn. And we kept that. It worked fine.
Was the hatting industry starting to go downhill at that point?
Yes. Yes, it was.
And this was what time? What the 50s or?
I'd say it was in the early 50s.
Okay, so
they were up there, and I think now it's a warehouse.
Yeah.
And they were non-union. And then there was one on Thorpe Street. That was union. There were two McLaughlins, both in hatting. George was the oldest. He lived on Farview Avenue. And others lived on Deagle Avenue. See? And they were the whole of Danbury at the time. Of course, Lee was in there too. Lee was big. And I became president of the hat company. The banks were going into bankruptcy, and the banks asked me if I would. At first, I had Bernie Dolan, and then it come to me, and I said, "What's the matter with Bernie Dolan?" He refused, and he said, "See, you're playing tricks together. I should put us both on the board then."
So you became president of the Lee Hat Company?
Yeah.
What was it like being president of the Lee Hat
It was
Company?
kind of tough.
What time was that? What period was that?
I was in there, let's see, I was in about 15 years old, or a little more. A little more. And what killed the hatting business, you get a kick out of this, hatting business was not the cost so much, but when you got that job, you had to do your work. By that I mean, you were called upon. You did your work. The bank would call you. And when we got in a jam, because the union was tough, we had union trouble in there. Stayed here for a while. We got around it, thank God. And I called the board together. You take Butch Stroop. He's the president of the hospital up there. He's a very wonderful man, a multi-millionaire. I don't know whether you know it or not. He gives the hospital at least $1 million a year. His wife gives the money. They're very nice people. I put them on the board. I put good lawyers on the board. And we come to the conclusion to sell it. JP Stetson wanted it. So we got Stetson in and sat down and decided what it was worth and why and all that. And we sold JP Stetson. But what? Another thing hurt having business. The cars, like I wouldn't have any trouble, but you would. See, and you wouldn't have any trouble. But I mean, standing. You got to go down.
Right.
The rock, there was a shaking and all that, see. And that's why we sold it. God was on our side anyway, I guess, because we got a fair price for it, and they're very nice people. They gave millions of dollars every year. As a matter of fact, I come in the hospital out of there alive, which I never expected to, and nobody else did. They got pictures of it all over. It saved my life. I had to go out in the house and separated, and that's where I went to that hospital. And they have doctors out of this world. And Stetson, very wealthy people, and they never let anybody go hungry down there. They were nice people. I was lucky.
So you sold the Lehigh company to the Stetson company?
Yeah, we called the league and then I told them. Only one objected. But I saw her at the Original Country Club. First time I got a kiss from her instead of a kick.
Diane?
You have been referred to as Danbury's first modern mayor. Why do you think that's so?
Say that again?
You have been referred to as Danbury's first modern mayor. Why do you think that's so?
First what?
Steve Collins felt that you were Danbury's first modern mayor, that you brought some of the major changes.
Sure.
What were some of the things that you did to modernize Danbury?
The first thing I did is on Harvard. I was a fighter politically. I wanted to get Main Street widened and White Street widened. And I got nowhere. All that. I told them if they didn't, I would put a chain across the street and nobody would go over Danbury Fair, only nurses and doctors. And I said, and the police would arrest anybody. You know, it worked. We got Main Street, we got lights and everything else.
There was no lights on Main Street?
No lights, no. No lights. U.S. Steve Collins never got over that one. Oh, I'll tell you that story.
That'd do it.
Sure. Well, Steve way back, he was first writer he went to Danbury High School. He used to write something doing this in the high school, you know, I think it was once a month, called Team Beat. The school up in Melford and other bits, and other locations. And Steve was a hard worker too. But we got some wonderful, nice fellows in there.
What other major changes did you make in Danbury?
Oh, gee, I can't think of offhand right now.
The consolidation issue.
Oh, I was for that all the way.
Some people claim that the consolidation issue cost you the election.
It did.
What happened
I stuck
there?
it. Because it wasn't fair. See, the local people were getting away with murder and other people were paying the same price, which was not right on taxes. See, so I got in trouble there. But when I knew I was right, I could be stubborn.
Okay, maybe if you could explain why was there a need for consolidation? What was it that made you create it?
Now I live on 26 acres of land in what we call the town of Danbury. So it was a town and a city. The city were getting away with paying taxes. I mean, they weren't. The town was. See, they said it's not fair. They're all cheaper than we are. And we transparent to the schools. The ones in Danbury, we don't. So they're not treating us right. So we went on that with Joe Sauer, and it was all ironed out, no trouble at all.
Okay, I understand the election was the election close?
Yes, very close. I knew I was going to be beaten. But I wouldn't change my mind on it because it just was all wrong. And I put the rope up. Chain. You know, I wouldn't have to do that today.
Yeah.
We put one over by the kennels on one on Richfield, one there, one on White Street. Couldn't go by. Well,
Bridget?
What do you see for Danbury's future?
I think Danbury is growing, and I think it's going to be a nice little place to live. I'm satisfied now. I moved out of Danbury. Oh, I like Danbury very much. It's never been good to me, and the people in Danbury. You've got good people in Danbury. You don't have much trouble at all. Much trouble.
Diane?
Could you tell us about life in Danbury when you were a young boy? How has it changed?
What was that again?
Can you tell us about life in Danbury when you were a young boy and how has it changed?
I don't think it changed any. We were young kids. We had our bicycles. We sometimes get scolded for going on the sidewalks and things like that, but nothing serious. You know what I mean? Danbury was never gotten any trouble. Not in trouble at all.
What was school like when you didn't go to this school by any chance, did you?
Was when I was in school? No.
No.
I went to Moore Street.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to New Street. Because, see, Moore Street only had 4 grades. I can tell you the teacher's name yet. and so I had to go someplace else. So we had to go to New Street School. And then I stayed in there for, I think it was 2 years. And then I went to St. Peter's School. My mother was quite a religious gal. And she said, you're going that far. And you're not getting good marks. And you go there. But I thought nuns that had these straps. That was what you got across your butt, you know. With that, and I went in and I saw it. I said, geez, I'm going to be a good boy here.
You got a little behind in your work, they got a little of your behind, huh?
No, they never.
No?
I never had any trouble, no. No, they were nice people down there. There were some nuns and other regular teachers, you know, taught there. And I was exposed to it a little bit at the beginning, but it worked out good.
What was there to do in Danbury when you were a teenager? What were some of the
Couple
activities?
newspapers. Couple newspapers.
Yeah.
Make 7 cents a week on newspaper.
My goodness. They wouldn't even buy you a newspaper today.
There's a lot of people feel that way, you know that?
Yeah. What sort of things did the kids do? Did they get together and do things? Were there
Well,
activities?
most of them were paper boys,
Uh-huh.
you know. And like I had, my brother went in the service, and he was older than I. So he belonged to the Army on West Street. Not West Street, not West Street. I don't even know the street in Denver anymore. The old Army.
Right.
We used to go up there and train, my brother. Then he had to go in for so many months. I think it was months that the school was out. So I went up there and practiced shoot at the end shooting.
Mm-hmm.
At the very, very end. I was only for police, you know, because some of them were kind of too quick with that gun, and I'm opposed to it. I don't think anybody should have a gun unless they've got damn good reasons. I never allowed my men, unless they took the pledge, use a gun.
I think we had a question about law enforcement, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, done.
Could you tell us a little bit about law enforcement as the director of Danbury's jails?
Well, the Danbury jail, I closed that up, by the way. It was too dirty for that. I mean, they just let it go to hell, by an expression. It was awful dirty inside there. So if you notice the thing outside, I stopped it. I stopped all the jails. No prisons. take a small town like Danbury and you throw them in the jug, they're not getting any worse. And you send them up to Hartford where they get a training and go through the ropes, and the older state police, some of them are, like John Kelly just died. Now there was a man that was a wonderful man in my book. He never would arrest a kid. Never. But look out. He would never make an arrest, but whoever. And David, a fellow named Baker, the same way he lived on now we see the next one over. He used to call like Matt. I didn't fellow there. He had some trouble. I arrested him. He wouldn't arrest him. But the fellow called him. And he called him in. What did he do? He said, okay. So he called the kid in. He says, I want you to come down here with either your mother or your father. Then he would give him a lesson to talk to him. Now you promise him you're not going to do this again. Behave yourself. And I want either your mother or father come down and I want to talk to him. So they used to come down, mothers especially, and say this boy did this and that, and we don't want to lose that. He was tough. He don't want the kid to have a bad mark on him. He should be still alive. A wonderful man. And that's what he ran the show. And they'd come down. And people come over. Only once he would work. And if you notice where the fairgrounds is on the curve of the road, the machine shop there.
So there was grinding or something?
All you cops are like trying to be too tough because they want to see the mother and father, and they went and they said, what the hell do you want us for, this and that. So they told him, well, you take the bicycle away from this kid and put it in the garage, and you'll teach him. And he told him, well, I don't think I can do that. 1 week later, the 2 people were dead, elderly people. And then they went back crying. You know, we made a mistake, this and that. It was their own blood.
What was it like in the jail, in the old jail? That's now
Baker.
the one that they just rebuilt, you know? I mean, when they're actually prisoners there, what was their life like?
Well, they had to take care of it. I'd be down once a week, something like that. But that was Godfrey was one of them. Bowman, another.
Well, was that just a lockup, or were there any activities there, or?
It was more of a lockup at the end. We couldn't. The lockups I didn't go in. They just throw something in there. It wasn't good. So I son of Bridgeport over there, they got good food. Mm-hmm. And if they behaved themselves, they got out quicker. We made it good out in Bridgeport. I have something nice there, and I'm trying to look for it. And we have a colored fellow. They wouldn't have him there. He made the best sheriff I ever had, and I'm telling you the facts of life. He was a wonderful man. Come in, dressed up every morning, right on time. And I made him the boss down there, and he still is there. Wonderful, wonderful man.
That's it. I think we're done.
Okay. Would you like to ask the kids any questions?
Well,
Kind of curious about the school or them or whatever?
well, kids, don't overdo it, I can say. I have to try to act like the father for my son. I would tell you, and bring you in if you got in trouble and give you a little scolding. Might, if you get $1 a week pay, if you get some ice cream or something, you'd lose that until you got in shape again. But we never have to get the kids. It happens if you do that. You have no trouble. Shouldn't have any trouble.
I was wondering if you wanted them to answer any questions for you, you know, about the school or anything like that.
About the schools here, well, all schools have their trouble, but I think we're pretty lucky in Danbury. We don't get too much trouble in schools. I can't see it in the papers. I see it once in a while, but that's very seldom. Gee.
All the kids that are in this program are volunteers. They've requested to come here.
Good.
That makes us
Say that way. We need
Everybody here
volunteers.
wants to
You know, the volunteer, like,
Yeah.
well, I shouldn't say this, but I mean it. I belong to post committee number 4 for 64 years. And they were disgraced by 2 fellows. Terrible. They were arrested. They're going to pay a good price. They're going to pay pay a good price because they didn't service things, the fire truck and everything else. So that's the way to go about this.
Okay, we're gonna let Dennis close.
It's the Alternative Center for Education, closing interview with former Mayor John Brevity.
What was that again?
Can I try that again? That was good. I want to thank you very much for coming in, so
Well,
I really appreciate it.
Don't hesitate if you need, if I can be of any help in any way. I mean, I don't want to goof you. I mean, you're not a kid anymore. I mean, some of these other ones aren't. And when you get in that position, I'd be glad to have you come to me.
Okay.
I'll go right along and work with you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I don't expect any money or anything else. I'll give money rather than expect it. Oh, I'm for Danbury all the way.
Right.
I was born in Bethel, but Danbury is where I live.
Right. Do you know Joe Pepin?
Oh, very well.
Yeah.
He talks a lot, but he's all right.
He's our boss. I'd really like to, I know he'd like to see you before you go, so I want him, Tommy,
Okay.
can you
Yeah,
take him down and introduce him to Joe? And,
Pepin? Yeah.
yeah.
This is the Alternative Center for Education in Danbury, Connecticut, interviewing former Mayor John Devine. Good morning, Mr. Devine.
Good morning. Very nice having you here today.
Thank you.
Should I go ahead with the question?
Yes, you should.
All
You
right.
may.
Why did you want to become mayor of Danbury?
Well, I think for several reasons. First of all, my grandfather had run for mayor twice. My great uncle had run for mayor twice. My father had been on the Board of Education, and they'd come pretty close, but back in the 20s, well, an Italian didn't have too much of a chance in getting elected to high office. And as a result of it, my heritage is Irish-Italian. My mother's bringing up almost ordained me as having this burning desire that one day I would like to be mayor. I seek to be alderman at the age of 21. I was running for the legislature at 23, was elected at 25, and I became mayor at the age of 29. I was quite young and I'm quite proud of it, and I served for 3 terms. And at that time was elected by the 3 largest pluralities in the history of the city. So I guess it was pretty much inherent with me that from my family background that I would at least run for mayor. Whether I'd be elected or not was something else.
What were your major accomplishments while being mayor?
Well, actually, I'm quite proud of the accomplishments that we had while I was mayor because, well, first of all, we had a redevelopment program. All that area that you see in Kennedy Drive where from White Street up, we had, in 1955, while I was mayor, we had very devastating floods. Overnight, we had $14 million in losses. That would run into the hundreds of millions of dollars today, with dollar values being as they are. So that a lot of my accomplishments were as a result of the floods that occurred. But at the time that I ran, we did promise a redevelopment program. We promised a planning commission. We promised a civil service board for the police and fire departments. And we said that we would update the government and change things, review the charter, rezone the city. Well, as a result of the floods, many things happened. Governor Ribicoff, then came in and said, look, the first thing you've got to have is a redevelopment program so that you can get federal funds. And that was the millions of dollars that we got to tear down the buildings that had been damaged as a result of the floods and to rebuild new buildings. In order to do that, we had to have a planning commission. Once we had a planning commission, we then had a traffic problem, so we then had to form a traffic authority. One thing followed, so that I suppose maybe I was a victim of circumstances. We had a great many accomplishments, and they were the forerunner to many of the things that happened in the years after I was no longer mayor, but it wasn't necessarily that I was that good. It was that I was there at the time, and anyone else that had been there would have done the same thing because they would have had to have done it. It's the only way that the city could continue to progress. And we were just about at the crossroads at that time where the hatting industry was phasing out and new industries were looking at Danbury. And I might add that Danbury, because of the way it's geographically situated, so close to New York, and with the new highways like 84 coming in, was a natural, logical place for development and growth to take place as Stamford and Norwalk and Lower Fairfield County filled up. So that I would think probably our major accomplishments were the planning of the future and forming of these agencies and the redevelopment programs that we had. Another thing I'm very proud of is that it was I that was the first mayor ever to appoint a black police officer, a black man to the police department. It was something that was not accepted very well in certain areas of the community at the time. I received an awful lot of hate mail for it. But I was, and I still am, extremely proud to be able to say that I was the first one to ever do that, and that it worked out very well, and as a result of it, that the police department in Danbury received a lot of recognition throughout the state.
What were some of your responsibilities being mayor?
As mayor, you're superintendent of the police department, you're the head of the fire department, you're head of the public works department, and you just run the city. Now, the mayor's job is an important job. You make a lot of important decisions. But it's also hubs around the corporation council. That's the legal entity. You have an attorney that's corporation council that advises the mayor on what has to be done legally or how you can do it. And the other things that are a very important part of the city, probably more important than anyone else, is the engineer. Because no matter what you do, whether it's the roads, the school system, the buildings, the sewage disposal plants, it's all engineering, and unless you were a civil engineer as mayor, you have to depend upon your city engineer, and that's where it all hubs around. So that I would say that my job was to seek advice from the very best possible sources that I could get, put it all together, listen to people, and then make a decision and give the order to do things and follow it through to see that it's concluded, hopefully, to the best interest of the city. One thing I always did was, well, I always got a lot of Republican votes. I'm a Democrat, and because of it, I never questioned anyone whether their politics might be Democrat or Republican. If anyone came to me and I could do them a service, I would do it, and I was completely unaware or didn't care at all, however they voted. Maybe subconsciously, I hope the next time they vote for me if they had that time. Probably I did.
Every mayor that we have interviewed either went into insurance or real estate. Why did you get into real estate?
The reason I got into real estate, Lisa, is because my mother and father founded this business in 1913. I was born into it. When I graduated high school, I attended Hartford College of Law and Insurance. I majored in insurance and real estate. And before I entered politics, I was in the insurance and real estate business. And I might add that when I became mayor, one sad experience that I had was my father had established quite a large insurance agency, which I became a part of. One night, for no apparent reason, some man came in saying that he was sent in by the mob, whoever the mob might be, to get the mayor. And he robbed the place. He held the bookkeeper that we had done hostage for about 4 hours. It was a most unpleasant experience. Naturally, being mayor, when the word went out that it was my office that had been robbed, all the detectives and the policemen off duty, on duty, all over were called right into action, the state police, and they found the man, and they never really determined what the reason for it was except robbery, but he did make that statement at the time that he was sent in to do a number on me for whatever reason. But fortunately or unfortunately, he never got to me. I guess that depends whether you're Democrat or Republican at the time.
Were there any dangers of being mayor?
Well, I suppose there's always dangers when you hold any position of leadership. No matter what you do or how you do it, there's certain people that don't approve of what you do. The necktie you wear, people will criticize you for sometimes, the way you wear your hair, whatever. But on one occasion, I was in my office in City Hall, and that was in the old City Hall when I was mayor. That was before the new City Hall was built. The police station was down in the lower level. That calendar we passed around also has a picture of the old City Hall, and that would show where the police station was right at the corner of West Street and Main Street. And one day a man came in and wanted to see me, and I saw him, and as I sat there, just as I'm sitting here, I faced him. He pulled a gun out and said he was there to kill me. And I said, I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. But I asked him why or what I had done or for what reason, who he was, and he said he was just sent there and that he'd been to Washington and the FBI sent him in and they said that I had to be done away with. Well, at City Hall, not only was it I, but all mayors, there was a button on the floor as there were other buttons, that if anything like that happened, you just pushed it with your foot and it went off in the police station, which was just downstairs. When that button went off, well, hell broke loose, and like in seconds they were all up and they got him, and he was just a deranged person that for no particular reason had decided to seek me out, and that he believed or had in his mind formed that he was sent there as a mission by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Another incident we had while attending a political convention in Hartford, a man saw my wife and continued to stare at her, and no one knew who he was, but every time she turned around, he was there. She became quite upset about it all, but we didn't pay too much attention to it. Well, after the convention, we returned back home to Danbury, and about a week later, one day she opened the door to get the mail, and she looked across the street, and there he was. He was just staring at the house. So by the time the police got there, he had left. But we were all very concerned then. So that was really the only time that we were guarded, and during that time we had round-the-clock protection for about 3 days. We had a detective. It was in the summertime or the fall. We had a detective in the driveway every night, all night long, and it's kind of an eerie feeling with a detective and the kitchen door being open for them to walk in and out and have coffee all night long, and you're trying to sleep upstairs. Our house isn't that large, knowing that any minute something might happen. But again, they finally found the person, and he just happened to like Esther, and again, his mind was not right. Not because he liked Esther, but he just picked her out of all the women there. For what reason, no one will ever know. And he was sent back to where he came from, and all ended well. But those were really the only two experiences. We got an awful lot of hate mail, though. I got a lot of pictures in the mail of things with me being depicted in various ways with blood on my hands because of the floods, of not proceeding with a flood program as quickly as I should have, and that showing that if something else happened, that they had the mayor and they had a weird-looking person with his hand in the blood, the people that were suffering from it, and they said, the blood's on your hands, Mr. Mayor, why don't you act? Why haven't you? And things like that. And they would keep it up. And unfortunately for me, maybe fortunately, I don't know, maybe that's one of the reasons that helped get us the majorities. The newspaper, the local newspaper, wasn't as sympathetic toward me as they have been in recent years toward Democratic mayors. At that time, they were pretty much slanted toward Republicans. So I had a great deal of difficulty with the newspaper. The editorials were always anti-me. They never endorsed me in the 3 times that I ran. That may have helped me, I don't know. But in any event, I had to fight not only the opposition party, but also the local newspaper, and they constantly were the watchguard. One thing that might have been good is that the council, our common council, was all Democratic. During the 6 years I served, we had no Republican office holders. It just happened that way that we carried the full slate. And as a result of it, maybe the newspaper was the watchguard for the city just to keep us on our toes.
Okay.
At least I like to think of it that way.
What was it like being a teenager when you were in Danbury?
I guess it was a lot different than it is today. Danbury wasn't as sophisticated as it is. It was a much smaller city. And high school, sports activities. I guess the worst thing that any high school student did in those days was to go over the state line to the bars over in Brewster. At that time it was 21 in Connecticut and only 18 in New York State. But we didn't have any problem. There was no such thing as drugs, at least that I ever knew of. And maybe there were some, I don't know, but it wasn't like it is today by any means. And boys and girls, kids growing up, all of us, we had problems in school the same as everyone does. But we did things more together. We used to have, I remember when I was in high school, every Friday night they had a high school dance down at the Elks, sponsored by one of the youth organizations. And they had, when the Lions Club started the graduation nights, back that far, for the all-night parties. I don't know if they still have them yet or not, but for graduation, instead of going out and everybody raising hell as they did, we all went down to the War Memorial and had an all-night party, and they served breakfast the next day. And that was a good thing. It saved a lot of heartaches, because it seemed every year some 1 or 2 people would really be very seriously injured, and there were a couple of times they were even killed from graduation. So when you say growing up We all worked. I worked in my father's office. I guess it was pretty much a lot alike the way it is today, but still not as many things to do and not as much money to do them with. An awful lot of children growing up when I was a teenager used to have to work in order to get money because the financial situation in Danbury was not quite by any means like it is today or like it has been in the last 25 years. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but...
What do you see in the future of Danbury?
Well, I guess Danbury is probably going to will emerge as the outstanding, in fact it is the outstanding city I think in the state today. As I said earlier, I think that because geographically the way that it's situated, it had to happen, and with all these new companies coming in and the satellite companies that are here with Union Carbide and the others, that it's just going to continue to grow and grow, and as it grows, it's going to have its share of problems, but I think it'll also bring other things with it. Incidentally, another thing you asked me about some of my accomplishments earlier was I that started the band concerts and more or less moved toward the more cultural aspects of the community. I'm quite proud of that because up until that time we didn't have any, and I'm not saying that I am the one responsible for these things, but these were all steps in the right direction. This was the transition of a small country town into a cosmopolitan, not necessarily metropolitan, but a cosmopolitan city. And these things, they take time. I mentioned earlier, too, about a civil service. It wasn't a civil service program, but we had the first merit system in the police and fire department, public works department. That took it out of politics, and people have been based on not whether they belong to the Democrat or Republican Party, but based on their ability, were able to attain better positions and get promotions within the system of the city government without going outside of it. So I think that the potential for Danbury is the greatest of anywhere in the state. I noticed in the paper the other day that it referred to Danbury as having the highest per capita, or Fairfield County. It's the highest per capita, or second highest per capita of any county in the United States. So that it says a lot for Danbury. Danbury coming from a hatting community, and incidentally too, most people think that Danbury was always a hat town. And prior to that, I don't remember what, but it was mulleted worldwide for something other than hats before it became the hatting center. Whatever it was, same as hats phased out, and then the hatters came in. And I'm familiar with the hatting business because my grandfather owned a hat shop, and there were 89 hat factories in Danbury at one time. Today there's only one. So that the transition and the things changing, back when I was mayor, it was just beginning, but you can see today the diversification of all the new industries, that even in the days back 50 or 100 years ago, people realized that Danbury was the place to be, and the basis of all these things is really what's built the foundation for what's happening now, I would say.
As a real estate person and as a former mayor, you'd have a slightly different perspective on what's going to happen in Danbury. The rebuilding of downtown with the Eric Eddy proposal, which looks like it has a good chance of passing at this point, and the development of the mall are going to be two major events. Do you have any thoughts on how that might change Danbury?
I think it's going to change it considerably. I happen to favor the Eric Eddy proposal because I think that he's had the experience on it, but I'm not quite sure that downtown Danbury is ever going to be the Saturday night town that it once was, or that there'll always ever be the hustle and bustle. I'm not even sure that the Eric Eddy proposal, with as much business attached to it as there is going to be able to be successful. I think the mall, whether it's good or bad, it's irrelevant at this point because it's happening, it's a fact. But the mall, I think, is probably going to take most of the downtown business, and all that will be left there will be specialty shops and maybe apartments and offices. But I think that unquestionably that Danbury, the mall, it's going to be the largest mall in New England. It's got to have a definite effect, and I just don't think, no matter what they do with the parking, they're arguing about whether the parking should be metered parking or parking from a garage, and Eric Eddy charges the city. It's all irrelevant, I think, because people are going to go to the fairgrounds anyway. And getting back to that about the parking and changing about the downtown, it's really an academic question as far as whether the city charges the parking or private parking, anywhere you go, New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, New York, Myers parking is all over the place, so that, what's the difference, as long as there's parking. But I think the important thing is to have people to park. And I don't think they're going to be here to park once the mall comes in. I think they're going to be at the mall parking. So that I think real estate values in Danbury will grow. I think the housing will grow. I think that like the parks property for a park is an important thing. I think we need more recreational facilities, even though we do have Lake Candlewood, which is the largest man-made lake in the state. I guess it's one of the largest in New England. But with the growth that's taking place and will continue to take place, I think the projected figures of Danbury by the turn of the century will be something like 90,000 people. Well, you take that 25 or 30 years going from maybe, say, 50,000 doubling in that short period of time, that's an awful lot of people. And an awful lot of planning has got to be done to meet the needs of those people. Plus the fact that people today are better educated, work less hours than they used to years ago, and expect more from their community in the line of services and also in things being available for them to do. And incidentally, for whatever it's worth to you, I think the most important thing that any one of you can do, individually or collectively, is be sure that you get your high school diploma. Because today, I know that no matter what happens, as people come and as jobs become available, you may say, well, it's only a piece of paper. Maybe it is. But the fact that you have it is probably the most important step in your life right now. Because in my opinion, and it's only my own opinion, that within the next 5 years, anyone without a high school diploma is not going to have any kind of a job at all worthwhile. That you're going to have it for any type of work at all that has any type of future in it. No matter what you start at, you can always go up, but that diploma is going to be there. And the basis of it is the education that you're getting now. I think you're especially fortunate, too, in having such a fine person as Mr. DeSalva, if I'm pronouncing your name, sir, correctly.
It's a Salter, but that's okay.
DeSalva.
Oh, they know it.
Being with you, because he certainly has a very definite interest in you, and I know this, that he stayed very diligent with me in order to have me meet with you.
It's a special school. We really are, you'll often hear people say it's a family, and I think that's the way we feel. The kids are special to us, and they return it.
I had that sense of feeling when I spoke with you. You just, you didn't care. It was a nighttime you'd call. Well, first time I spoke to you was 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I think. You were at home, you were calling me.
We have kids that came in last Saturday. We had kids that came in to fix up some of the things in the building that needed some work.
Uh-huh.
And that's, how many schools do you know where kids will come back on a Saturday to repair some damage that was done?
It's the other way around. The kids are ruining
come back
the
on
schools.
Saturday to do it.
And it's only because they're not taking and giving the pride in it. And, it starts with it being a family.
So they're very proud of their program. Even though some of the students are new, I think they're already pretty happy with it. So. Jiminy?
What was unique about Danbury?
I think, first of all, geographically, the way it is settled. And being so close to New York State, when 84 came in, it put us within an hour and 15 or 20 minutes of Broadway. This is my opinion, that was the basis of it. That's what people realized years ago. 6 and 7, as was said earlier, came into it when the North River, now the Hudson River, in the days of Revolution, came through here. It's because of where Danbury is that it all started. And then because of where it is, because of the labor market, because of the talents that are here, because of the educational system, and because of the workforce. In other words, companies can move in here, they can find just about any type of employees or associates that they need. And there's opportunities here for people to grow with these companies, and it brings more people in. And the more people that come in, the more companies that come in. And the more satellite businesses that come in. Look at the motels, the hotel. Now they say there's another new hotel going out across from the Hilton. I think the Sheraton's going to build a hotel. So that regardless of what type of occupation or what kind of profession you want to follow, I think Danbury does today and will in the future most certainly offer the opportunity to do it and do it well and be successful at it and make yourself a very handsome living. It's my opinion.
Would you like to add anything at this point other than the questions?
No, nothing more than that, as I said, I don't mean to be repeating about the diploma, but I think that education is the basis of the whole thing, and because of the educational system in Danbury, because of Henry Abbott School. That's something that an awful lot of people have not paid too much attention to, but it's there. And, you know, students have graduated there and gone on to college. In the minds of some people, it's still a trade school. That's not so. It's no longer a trade school. It's an accredited college school preparing people for college, the same as your school is an accredited school. And once you're graduated, regardless of what your decision is or what you do, you refer always back to that, because every job application that you fill out, or every job interview you have, are you or are you not a graduate of high school? When you answer yes, you'll probably be doing for a long, long time. And it certainly was indeed nice having all of you today, and it was my pleasure to be with you. And anytime I can be of any assistance individually for any one of you, don't hesitate to call upon me. And I might mention that Lisa, who's a member of the class, is also a member of this organization. She works in the office, has been working there. I guess it's pretty much part of the family, right, Peggy? Thank you very much.
Okay, Jim, would you like to close?
This is the Alternative Center for Education interview. Former Mayor, Mr. Bauman. Good afternoon, Mr. Bauman.
Hi.
You are a Republican. Why is that good for you?
Well, I'm not so sure why it's good for me or if it's good for me, but I've always believed in the Republican philosophy. There's a lot of people who feel that the Republican Party is only the party for the rich and the well-to-do people. Actually, this is not true. It actually is the other way. The Republican administrations over the years have done just as much for the poor, just as much for the down privileged as the Democratic administration. It's a two-way street, and it's just the way some people interpret it. I think the Republican administration generally is a more conservative administration. They don't rush out and fund all these programs without knowing why they're funding them. And I think they are concerned with abuses of the grant or the social programs more than they are cutting out the programs themselves or restricting the programs. I think they're concerned with the abuses that hurt the whole programs.
Most administrations raise taxes. How are you able to lower them?
Well, we actually didn't lower them very much. What we tried to do was hold the line, and what we tried to do was hold down expenses. We cut out a lot of unnecessary, what I thought was unnecessary parts of the budget. We had good committees working at the time. We considered the taxes. We had a city and a town government, and I worked with the Board of Estimate and Taxation. And it was not my doing completely. It was a bipartisan board. We all worked together. And we tried to cut out all the fat in these programs. And I don't think Danbury was actually losing money. I think every budget had a little surplus in it. We didn't actually lose money, but we didn't build up enough of as much of a surplus as we were able to build up later by, it's a simple matter of we didn't spend more than we took in, and we kept holding the line. If you spend more than you take in, you're going to lose money, and we just made sure that we didn't spend any more than we were taking in. We made some people unhappy because we didn't grant raises across the board, and we didn't allow a lot of the things that the various commissions and committees and departments of the city wanted. You know, everybody wants the best for their department because they want to do a good job. And they, for instance, the Public Works might want 3 bulldozers and 15 trucks, and we figured we could get along without all those things, so we tried to make do with what we had. Now, sometimes that doesn't work, because if you go too long, all your equipment runs down and you need to replace it all. But we were able to do it on that basis. We were just very careful with not to spend more than we took in.
The morale of town workers was pretty low. Why was that and what did you do about it?
Again, I have to disagree a little because I don't think the morale of the workers was that low. There may have been some things that they were upset about. I made it a policy to talk with the workers and meet with them whenever they wanted to and try to discuss their problems and try insofar as we could to help the problems. We listened to everybody. We didn't shut anybody off. I guess when people don't get as much money in their raises as they expect, their morale might go down a little bit. I don't think the morale was that low, really. And we tried to cooperate with everybody and work with everybody as we went along through the administration, through the terms that we had. And I think we did pretty well with the people. They didn't seem to be too unhappy with us. There is a certain amount of unhappiness that's always around, but I don't think it was that bad.
If I could throw one in, almost all the information that the students have gathered have come through such sources as the Danbury News-Times. So the questions they're asking you predominantly come from such articles. Do you think that the press in Danbury is able to give a pretty fair evaluation of what was going on, or did you feel that sometimes they would show a bias?
Sometimes, and this applies to both parties, sometimes I think the press has a little, they tend to editorialize the news, and they tend to slant it one way or the other, depending not politically so much as the way they feel about it. And I feel sometimes the press doesn't know all the things that are going on behind the scenes, and they're apt to jump at conclusions, and sometimes make the wrong conclusions. Nobody's infallible, and the morale of the town workers, I suppose, you're referring to that and some of the things I disagree with. I just didn't see that they were that bad, but of course when the press wants to make a story, they can make it very bad. And just by slanting it and parenthesis and quotation marks, and they take things out of context.
That's what's nice about being able to talk to people, because otherwise all you have is one point of view, which is what's published.
Right. And I think a one newspaper town tends to be in that position. They are told the news from that one standpoint.
What were those decisions, we understand that you made some decisions about the airport. What were those decisions?
I glanced at this question. I'm trying to remember what the decisions were about the airport. I don't think I had many decisions to make about the airport, except from the standpoint of continuing to subsidize certain operation of the airport. Yes, I did make decisions for that, and felt that the airport should receive the monies that they were after. I think the airport was a good moneymaker for the city. It created a pretty good tax base because all the airplanes based there are taxed according to the property tax, and produced some revenue for the city. I just happen to be air-minded, I guess, and airport-minded. I'm a former Air Force veteran, and I've always been interested in aviation.